Okay, let's jump in. If you want to talk about a true golden age in world history, I mean, a time that defined wealth, learning, and just sheer power, you have to talk about the Abbasid Caliphate.
Absolutely. And specifically, we have to talk about its capital, Baghdad. For centuries, that city was basically the center of the world.
Right. And what's so fascinating is that this period wasn't just a continuation of what came before, it was a full-on revolution.
It was. So today we're going to trace exactly how this dynasty started, what made Baghdad so important, and how the ideas born there, especially in science and math, are still part of our world today.
So it all kicks off with this huge political overthrow. The year is 750, and the Abbasids take power, ending the Umayyad dynasty.
And historians see this as a massive turning point. It's not just a new family in charge, it's a completely different ideology, a new way of running an empire.
To pull that off, you need a really strong claim, something undeniable.
And they had one. They based their legitimacy on family ties, claiming they were descended directly from Abbas ibn Abd al-Muttalib.
Who was the youngest uncle of the Prophet Muhammad?
Exactly. But, a good bloodline only gets you so far. Their real genius was in their messaging.
They were political masters. They won all this popular support by campaigning against the Umayyads, who were seen as, well, as favoring Arab elites.
Right. The Abbasids promised something totally different, a much more inclusive empire. They basically said, it doesn't matter if you're Persian or Egyptian or Arab.
If you're a Muslim, you're equal.
Exactly. And that message really took off in the eastern province of Khorasan. A lot of Persians lived there, and they felt sidelined by the old regime.
So when the Abbasids promised them equality, they became the engine of the whole revolution.
They did. And it all came to a head at a single decisive battle, the Battle of the River Zab. Once they won that, it was over.
And the entire center of power for the empire just shifts.
Completely. It moves away from Syria, which was the Umayyad heartland, and goes east. It was a clear signal.
Oh.
We are not the old government. This is a new order.
And a new order needs a brand new capital.
It does. So Caliph al-Mansur, the visionary behind this, picks a spot on the banks of the Tigris River. He builds it near some ancient Persian ruins, which is probably a nod to both the past and the future.
This wasn't just building a new city, though. This was an architectural statement.
A huge one. The city was designed as a perfect circle. That's why it got the nickname the Round City of Baghdad.
And it wasn't just for looks, right? The design was functional.
Highly functional. It was massive, about 1.5 miles across, with these incredibly thick fortified walls.
And I read it had 4 main gates.
4 main gates, and each one was precisely aimed at a different part of the growing empire. It was a symbol of total administrative control.
So where did the caliph live in all this?
Right at the dead center. I mean, the absolute middle of the circle. He put his grand palace and the main mosque right there, side by side.
So his political and religious authority are physically at the core of everything.
That's the message. And what's truly mind-blowing is how fast they built it.
Oh, get this. Thousands of architects and workers finished the entire project in just 4 years.
Just 4 years. It's incredible. And of course, the city was so successful, it immediately grew way beyond those original round walls. It became the hub for everything.
For global trade, for administration, everything.
But none of it would have been possible without water. The Tigris River was the absolute lifeblood of the city.
Okay, but how do you get water to, potentially 1 million people without modern plumbing? That seems like an impossible challenge.
Well, their engineers were geniuses. They didn't just have people haul buckets from the river. They built these complex, large-scale canal systems.
So they were actually diverting the Tigris.
They were. They channeled water from the river directly into the city streets and into the different neighborhoods.
And that water wasn't just for drinking, I assume.
Not at all. That same irrigation system was critical for farming. It let them grow huge amounts of food in the fertile land around the city, so Baghdad could actually feed itself.
Wow. And the river was also a highway for trade.
A massive trade highway. You had boats moving grain, textiles, all sorts of goods up and down, connecting Baghdad to distant lands. And it was a natural defense.
But didn't it also cut the city in half? How did people get across?
They built these brilliant bridges made of boats, all tied together. They were flexible but strong, so people in carts could cross easily. All that water made Baghdad famous for being a lush and green oasis.
So the city is perfectly engineered, it's thriving. But what makes it legendary isn't just trade, it's the ideas.
Yes, the engine room for all that knowledge was the House of Wisdom, or Beit el-Hikmah.
Which was basically a state-funded university, library, and translation center all in one.
Right, and it was heavily supported by Caliph Harun al-Rashid and then even more by his son, al-Mamun. Their mission was, to collect all the world's knowledge.
And this is where they launched maybe the single greatest preservation project in history. They invited scholars from all over the world.
Christians, Jews, Muslims, it didn't matter. Their main job was to translate. They gathered all these crucial ancient Greek and Indian books.
So like Aristotle's philosophy, medical texts.
Everything. And they translated it all into Arabic.
Yeah.
Honestly, if they hadn't done that, so much of that classical knowledge might have been lost forever during Europe's Dark Ages.
And this whole massive effort was only possible because of one key piece of technology they got their hands on.
Paper. Paper!
Yeah. The story is they learned the secret of paper making from some Chinese prisoners after a battle. And paper changed everything.
Because it was so much cheaper and easier to make than parchment, animal skin. Or papyrus.
Exactly. So they immediately built paper mills in Baghdad, and suddenly there's this explosion in the number of books and records.
And that's the real so what moment. When the material you write on becomes cheap, knowledge itself becomes more democratic.
It does. Regular people could suddenly afford books, could afford to learn to read and write. And for the government, being able to run a huge empire on cheap, standardized paper records was a total game changer.
Okay, let's talk about the ideas on that paper, because this is where we get the bedrock of modern math. We do. And it really centers on one mathematician, Muhammad ibn Musa al-Khwarizmi.
This is where we get the word algebra.
From his term al-jab, which means the reunion of broken parts. A perfect description. But he also helped popularize the number system we all use today.
The Hindu-Arabic numerals, so 1 through 9.
And crucially, the concept of zero.
Right. I mean, imagine trying to do long division with Roman numerals. It's almost impossible. Zero makes complex math possible.
And these tools weren't just for scholars. They were used in the real world immediately. Merchants used them for better bookkeeping.
Architects used geometry to create those beautiful, complex patterns in Islamic art, the arabesque style.
And scientists use math to study the stars, to map the Earth. I mean, this is the foundation for modern science and engineering.
It wasn't just math either. They were pioneers in medicine.
Fundamentally, they established the first public hospitals, called biomaristans. And get this, all patients could get care, whether they were rich or poor.
That's universal health care in the 8th and 9th centuries.
It's revolutionary. And the doctors were incredibly advanced. A physician named Al-Razi wrote a huge encyclopedia of medicine. But more importantly, he was one of the first to really stress the importance of hygiene.
Like washing hands and cleaning instruments to stop germs from spreading.
A groundbreaking idea for the time. And their surgeons were performing complex operations. They had specialized pharmacies. The standards were incredibly high. Students had to pass tough exams to practice medicine.
All of this, the healthy population, the intellectual boom, it all fueled this massive economic engine.
And what an engine it was. Baghdad was the undisputed center of global trade. It connected Europe to Asia. You had the Silk Road bringing in goods from China.
Silk spices?
Right. And then ships sailing the Persian Gulf, trading with India and East Africa for gold and ivory. The markets in Baghdad had everything.
And to make all that trade easier, the government introduced a single standard currency. And they created an early form of a check called a sack.
Which made long-distance trade so much safer. You didn't have to carry sacks of gold on dangerous roads anymore. And all that wealth funded the hospitals, the libraries, the amazing art.
Speaking of the art, it had a very unique style. Since artists generally avoided drawing people in religious art,
They focused on geometry, on those intricate repeating floral patterns we call arabesque. It's an art form that reflects the mathematical genius of the age.
and even the writing itself became an art form, calligraphy.
A highly respected skill. You can't have a massive paper-based bureaucracy without beautiful, clear handwriting.
So who was the one person in charge of all of this?
That was the Caliph, the supreme leader. He held both political and religious authority. It was his job to enforce laws, keep the empire safe, and appoint governors.
And the most famous one, the one who really embodies this golden age, is Harun al-Rashid.
He's the Caliph from the 1001 Nights. He was known for being fair, for supporting the arts, and for caring for the poor.
And didn't he famously wander the streets of Baghdad in disguise?
That's the legend. He'd dress up like a normal merchant so he could listen to what ordinary people were actually saying to make sure his officials were doing their jobs right.
So what was a typical day like for one of those ordinary people?
It was busy, structured around work and prayer. The city was organized into neighborhoods, often by profession. So all the tanners would live in one district, all the weavers in another.
And the houses were built for the climate.
Thick brick walls to stay cool, with private courtyards and gardens on the inside, a little escape from the busy streets.
And people socialized in public baths, right?
Yes, the public baths were huge social centers, not just for getting clean, but for catching up on news and doing business. And education was everywhere. Kids went to school at the local mosque.
For centuries, the system was incredibly successful. But no empire lasts forever. What started to go wrong?
The empire just got too big. It was too vast to effectively control from one central city.
So the local governors in faraway places like Egypt or Persia, they started acting like their own kings.
Exactly. And crucially, they stopped sending tax money back to Baghdad. That starved the central government of its funding. At the same time, there was a lot of infighting within the ruling family itself, which weakened them even more.
And then came the final, tragic blow.
The year is 1258, and a massive army, the Mongols, arrives at the city walls.
And it's a catastrophe.
A complete catastrophe. They break through the defenses, destroy huge parts of the city, and they sack the libraries, including the House of Wisdom.
I've read accounts that say the Tigris River ran black with the ink from all the books they threw in.
Black with ink and red with the blood of the scholars. It was the end of Baghdad as the intellectual center of the world. The caliphate continued in a smaller form elsewhere, but it never regained that glory.
So in the end, the legacy isn't the fall, is it? It's what they built.
It is. Their greatest contribution was preserving all that ancient knowledge, giving us core principles like algebra and the concept of zero, and building the first truly global economic and intellectual powerhouse.
It's humbling to think that the next time you balance a budget or use a coordinate system or even get care at a public hospital, you're tapping into the legacy of that round city built on the banks of the Tigris so many centuries ago. Good luck with your studies.